Yesterday, you overheard our conversation, didn't you? My eldest son and his wife are returning home for the birth of their child. Consequently, I need you to clear your belongings out to the yard. Excuse me, but you can't have kids anyway, and you don't contribute to my son's work. The least you could do is make some room, especially since I'm paying $10,000 in rent. This situation is becoming too tiresome to deal with. I'm currently living with my mother-in-law, but she now wants me out of the house because my brother-in-law and his wife are returning. With my mother-in-law, brother-in-law, his wife, and my husband, this house is full of problems. I've been trying to maintain a smooth household, but it's becoming a hassle to think about it all. I'm done thinking. Okay, I'll leave, but I can't just put my belongings in the yard, so I'll come back later to pick them up. You're leaving? Thank you. That's a big help. Ignoring my pleas, my mother-in-law, I started packing my things and left the house. 7 seconds after stepping out the door, I took out my phone and called a junk removal service. Once I stopped thinking, no one could stop my actions. I'm Linda, a 40-year-old consultant. My husband, Mark, also 40, runs 3 restaurants as a sole proprietor. Although people often assume we've been married for a long time with kids, we're actually newlyweds. We both lived as workaholics and only married at this age. I had given up on marriage just before turning 40, but a random visit to a bar after work changed my mind. Is this your first time here? Mark asked with a smile as I sat at the end of the bar. I had been curious about the place for a while, and this time I decided to go in as a reward to myself for working hard. Mark assured me that many women come alone, and I felt comfortable as a loner at the counter. I became a regular, always sitting at the end of the bar, and it became normal for Mark to chat with me while I ate. I'm always busy with work, and I can't talk much. How about we go out for dinner sometime? Excited about the chance to dine with a restaurateur, I eagerly agreed. Our conversation slowly drew me to Mark's dedication to his work, and he grew fond of me seeing that I was a hardworking person. We started dating, and 2 years later, as we both turned 40, we decided to get married. Feeling shy about being a bride at 40, I asked my husband to skip the wedding ceremony, and we just took some photos of us dressed up. After getting married, I moved from my apartment to my husband's 3-story house with a garden and parking in a high-end area where the rent is around $1,000. Living with my 70-year-old mother-in-law seemed necessary, given the circumstances. I immediately agreed, but after moving in with my mother-in-law, I regretted accepting so quickly. When I settled into my husband's house, I realized it was too big for just the 2 of us. In addition to our bedroom, I had a lavish office room for myself, and there were many spare rooms. Curious, I asked my husband a simple question: why do we need such a big house just for you and your mother? My husband explained that he has a brother 3 years older than him who left home after college, and they've lost touch. He hasn't been home for a few years, and my husband anticipates that one day he might return, which prompted them to rent a bigger house. I expressed my opinion that it might be a little too big. Well, I got married and you came, so I guess it all worked out, my husband said with a smile as he unpacked my books and arranged them on the shelf. He shared stories about his brother Daniel, who seemed to be hopping from job to job. Despite his brother's situation, my husband didn't harbor negative feelings towards him. Don't talk about that kid. What if he really comes back? My mother-in-law appeared at the doorway of what would be my office, seemingly checking on us. It was clear she didn't have a good opinion of him, unlike my husband. I worried that conflicts might arise between my husband and mother-in-law regarding his brother someday. I'm not too fond of you either, Mom. Come on, we're going to live together now, so stop saying things like that, I said. My mother-in-law walked away, and my husband apologized, assuring me he would talk to her. I told him it's okay. I had a similar talk when we met for the wedding. I'll build a relationship with your mother as we live together, I assured him, taking a book from his paused hands and placing it on the shelf. It seems she didn't like my age. Being 40 makes it challenging to have children, and my mother-in-law probably wished Mark had married someone younger. Once the move was complete and our married life officially began, my mother-in-law's coldness towards me became evident. While there was no harassment or physical violence, she ignored or avoided me as much as possible. It felt a bit lonely, but I decided to consider it okay for now and hope to build a relationship with her over time. More pressing was my concern for Mark. "Are you okay with your work?" I asked him. "No, it's pretty bad. I need to take action soon, but it's tough to arrange the finances," Mark replied, sitting at the dining table with his head in his hands. I abandoned the dishes and settled in front of him, eager to listen. "These are tough times," Mark began, his voice heavy with concern. "Prices are soaring, expenses climbing, and customers are tightening their wallets. There's no end in sight. If this keeps up, I might have to close another one of our stores." About a year into our marriage, the situation at Mark's restaurants worsened. One of the 3 stores had already closed, and it seemed another might follow suit. Seeing Mark's troubled face weighed heavily on me, but my mother-in-law appeared unfazed by these challenges. "You're Mark's wife, but you don't help out at the store. You just do your own job. Can you really say you're fulfilling your role as a wife?" My mother-in-law's voice cut through the air from the living room, having overheard our conversation. I wondered what she was thinking, but she had her own perspective. "Mark has been running his own restaurant for nearly 10 years, overcoming various challenges. I believe he'll pull through this time too. You, his wife, shouldn't be making that face. Are you trying to feed into his anxiety and make him fail?" "What a terrible wife," she shouted again, her words dripping with spite and venom. I knew she wasn't simply trying to provoke me, but there was some truth in her words. Taking her words positively, I resolved to support Mark to the fullest, smiling reassuringly at my anxious husband. A year later, just as she said, Mark managed to turn the situation around and avoided closing a second store. "See, I told you," I said to my mother-in-law. "A stupid wife who can't even trust her husband. Don't drag Mark down," she replied, lashing out at me without reservation. Though our relationship seemed strained, since Mark's business was doing well, I considered it a break-even situation. However, things took a turn for the worse. Mark, having stabilized the business and with some extra money, seemed to get carried away, and rumors of his affairs surfaced. I couldn't fathom what he was thinking. Surely there were better ways to spend the money. It's peculiar how bad situations tend to pile up. Having witnessed Mark's business revenue drop, I understood this all too well, but I never imagined it would happen to me. Then Daniel called, my brother. Yes, Daniel, a freelancer, and his pregnant girlfriend, who worked at the same bar as Mark. They asked if they could move into our house and if they could work at Mark's restaurant. As I pondered how to address Mark about the affair from the dining room, my mother-in-law entered the living room and engaged him in conversation. They discussed Daniel, whom I had never met, and I felt completely sidelined as they continued their discussion. It was a peculiar scene. My mother-in-law, who used to resent Daniel for not fulfilling his role as the eldest son, was now urging Mark to welcome him. The reason was straightforward: the prospect of a grandchild. She had previously given up hope of seeing one, but now perceived an opportunity and had a change of heart. She even planned to offer them a home and jobs. Mark, who had always been supportive of Daniel, had rented this large house for such an occasion. However, circumstances had shifted, and I found myself caught in the middle. It struck me as odd to have Daniel and his family move in. I glanced at Mark from the dining area, and he returned my gaze with a troubled expression. Come on, it's a good thing. Daniel is in trouble, and you, Mark, have the means to help him, my mother-in-law said, pressing him. Mark seemed unable to refuse his mother's request, and I couldn't help but feel disappointed. I had hoped he would stand up to her, but it seemed like wishful thinking. He kept glancing at me, likely concerned about my reaction. With the deteriorating relationship with my mother-in-law, Mark's affair, and now the prospect of living with Daniel and his family, the problems were mounting. Overwhelmed and unsure where to begin, I decided to abandon my thoughts for the day and simply go to sleep. The next day, a holiday and likely due to extreme mental fatigue, I slept in until late morning. Mark was at work, leaving just my mother-in-law and me at home. As I reluctantly made my way to the living room, I dreaded what she might say about my late awakening. "You sure slept in. Must be nice to have such leisure," she remarked, surpassing my expectations. She then informed me about Daniel and his wife's impending visit for maternity leave. "So move your stuff out to the yard." "Excuse me?" I questioned, still groggy from sleep. She clarified that I should vacate to make room for Daniel and his family, citing my inability to have children and lack of contribution to Mark's work. I was taken aback. It seems she was indeed asking me to leave the house. Realizing that my presence was now deemed unnecessary, I decided it was too much trouble to fret over Mark, my mother-in-law, Daniel's family, and their future. "Understood. I'll leave," I declared. "I can't put all my belongings in the yard, so I'll come back later to pick them up." Ignoring my words, my mother-in-law expressed gratitude, and I began packing my things, leaving the house 7 seconds after stepping out the door. I grabbed my phone and dialed a junk removal service, my decision firm and resolute after putting an end to my overthinking. No one could sway me now. Let them all come to regret this choice later. Departing from the house, I opted to stay at a hotel temporarily. Although I had arranged for the removal service, they required some time to prepare. This aligned perfectly with my desire for some time alone. 2 weeks after leaving, I secured an apartment and began living independently. Since then, I hadn't heard from Mark, who probably believed I'd eventually return. The idea of Mark taking the current situation lightly infuriated me. However, today marked the day after his restaurant's day off, and I anticipated a call from Mark when he visited the restaurant for lunch prep. "What's going on here? The restaurant is completely empty," Mark exclaimed over the phone, confirming my expectations. Just as I thought, I chuckled and replied, "Mark, I could explain over the phone, but it would be more efficient if your mom was there too. I'm heading to the house now. Can you come back? You could open the restaurant anyway, right?" Unable to contain my laughter, I hung up, amused by Mark's reaction. He must be quite shocked. Still chuckling, I began preparing to leave. Upon arriving at the house, my mother-in-law immediately started yelling at me. Mark had apparently explained part of the situation. An unfamiliar couple, Daniel and his wife, were in the living room, looking confused and anxious, not fully grasping the situation amid my mother-in-law's extreme anger. "Why would you do such a thing? The restaurant can't operate now," she continued to scold. I countered, stating that it was my restaurant, and there shouldn't be a problem with me starting the closing process or having the items I bought disposed of by a junk removal service. "Huh, your restaurant? What are you talking about? Why don't you explain, Mark? You haven't told your mom, have you?" I challenged. Mark hesitated but confessed, admitting that I had paid for the expenses to turn around his struggling second restaurant branch. Hearing this, my mother-in-law looked perplexed, trying hard to understand but lacking the full information. Mark continued, uncomfortable and holding back, so I decided to step in and clarify. Before turning 40, I was single and working in ad consulting, with no wedding ceremony or new house purchase after marriage. I had saved up a significant amount of money. I lent Mark $200,000 to help revitalize his second restaurant branch, subsequently buying the rights to become its owner. I explained that I left most of the management to Mark, shifting his focus from the main branch to the second for its recovery. When Mark's restaurant was in crisis, I showed my concern alongside him. It was during a moment when my mother-in-law criticized me for not showing enough trust in my husband that I decided to support Mark to the fullest. My form of support was providing him with the necessary funds. During my single years, I had diligently saved money. "Mark, is this true?" My mother-in-law asked incredulously. "Yes, it's true," Mark admitted. She seemed surprisingly okay with it, even if I failed and squandered the $200,000 she had given me. Given the sizable amount, she suggested that if it was destined to fail anyway, it might be simpler for me to become the owner. The plan was to repay the borrowed $200,000 from the restaurant's earnings, but it was more straightforward for me to become the owner, with the restaurant's income going directly to me. Additionally, it afforded me the authority to decide whether to keep the restaurant open or not. It's a lie. Can something like that really happen? My mother-in-law exclaimed. To provide evidence, I spread documents like the business license transfer, rights agreement, and lease agreement on the table, proving my ownership of the restaurant. As she confirmed my name on those documents, her face turned red with shock. Why didn't you say anything about this? You always talked about how you believed in Mark and how the restaurant was recovering, right? She demanded. Mark explained that he felt pressured by her words, always striving to live up to her expectations. He didn't want to disappoint her, so he couldn't bring himself to reveal that he had borrowed a large sum of money from me. He feared her reaction, knowing how easily upset she could be. People like my mother-in-law often don't realize the pressure they put on others, and Mark found it challenging to express himself under her constant scrutiny. It was crucial not to let Mark's spirit break under her constant jabs, especially when the restaurant was finally turning around. That's why I kept quiet too. Mark and my mother-in-law apologized, and it seemed like everything was being resolved amicably. However, it was far from satisfactory for me, and the discussion was far from over. I handed Mark a divorce paper, shocking him. He assumed it was a reconciliation, but I knew about his affair with a part-timer, and the other part-time workers were aware of it too. Mark was taken aback, claiming it was just a rumor, but I presented evidence, a photo sent by a part-time worker showing Mark entering a hotel. While anyone could fabricate such evidence, it was undeniable. The success of the second branch had given him too much confidence, and he had gotten carried away. The resolution wasn't as simple as reconciliation. It required deeper discussions and decisions to be made. I reflected on my role as the restaurant owner, acknowledging that while I couldn't handle day-to-day operations, I made occasional visits to stay connected. The part-time workers, having learned about Mark's affair, sought my assistance. With their unwavering support, they provided evidence and kept the impending closure of the restaurant from Mark. My mother-in-law's voice quivered as she confronted the reality of closing the second branch and the impending divorce. The revelation that I had been paying the entire $10,000 monthly rent added another layer of shock. Mark, now burdened with the weight of financial difficulties, faced an uncertain future. As the discussion progressed, Daniel and his wife realized the challenges they would encounter in continuing to live in the house. Daniel pleaded for help, citing their impending parenthood, but the escalating argument underscored the uncertainty surrounding everyone's future. After the divorce, I focused on closing the restaurant, selling equipment to offset expenses. The experience as a restaurant owner proved insightful, reinforcing my commitment to my ad consulting career. With the family dynamics strained, the fallout extended to Mark and his mother, now sharing a small apartment with strained communication. The resolution brought both closure and uncertainty. The exposure of Mark's affair and the revelation of true ownership exposed familial fractures. The decision to close the restaurant added financial stress, and the introduction of divorce papers signaled a decisive move by me to take control of my life. The aftermath left strained relationships, financial uncertainty, and an uncertain future for everyone involved. The emotional toll of the conflicts was palpable, and the story closes with a sense of closure for some aspects but leaves lingering questions about the characters' futures and their ability to rebuild after the storm. The resolution, while providing clarity, marks the beginning of a new chapter as each character navigates the consequences of their choices. Hello, I'm Lucy, a 58-year-old woman who recently gained custody of my grandson, Matt. Today, I feel ready to share the challenging events that led to this point, hoping that discussing it here will boost my confidence to open up in real-life conversations. Let me start by introducing my daughter, Melanie. She's my only child and the apple of my eye. When she was just 3 years old, her father, my husband, passed away, leaving the two of us to navigate life together. Melanie was a bright and brilliant girl, and I cherished her strong work ethic, which eventually earned her a full ride to her dream college. In college, Melanie met Nain, and they married shortly after graduation. While I wasn't thrilled about the swift marriage, I kept my opinions to myself, simply wanting Melanie to experience the world independently. She received my advice to delay having children, focusing on her career. However, 2 years later, she became pregnant with my grandson, Matt. Although not entirely pleased with the timing, I couldn't deny a sense of excitement about becoming a grandmother. When Matt was born, it brought immense joy, and I couldn't wait to spoil him. Fast forward 2 years, and Melanie and Nain moved to another state for a better job opportunity. Despite my reluctance to be separated from my grandson, I understood their motives and learned to cope with their absence through Skype and regular calls. 8 years later, they returned, and I was ecstatic to welcome them back. During their absence, I communicated with them virtually, and when they returned, they delved into work, leaving Matt in my care for long hours. Despite my uncertainty about their work commitments, I cherished the time spent with Matt, and our bond grew stronger. Unfortunately, the situation began to unravel around Matt's 12th birthday. I always took part in grand celebrations for him, but that year, I couldn't attend due to a work trip. Despite my efforts to return on his birthday morning, I couldn't make it. In an attempt to make up for missing his significant day, I met with him the following day, saying, "Hey, sweetie, happy belated birthday." "Thanks, Grandma," he replied. "I'm so sorry I couldn't make it yesterday. I tried my best to make it back in time, but it was already 11 p.m. It's okay. You made it up to me anyway." How could I not celebrate my favorite grandson's birthday? "I'm your only grandson, Grandma." Okay, you're still my favorite though. Anyways, 12 is a big age. What did you do yesterday? Nothing. Oh, come on, Matt. If you're trying to protect my feelings from missing out on your birthday, I can assure you that I'll be fine. No, Grandma, I really didn't do anything. What do you mean? Didn't your parents take you out for dinner? I sent your mom money for that. Well, I sat at home all alone throughout the day, except for when my friends came over for a bit. Mom and Dad came back home really late from work, so I didn't do anything. Why were your parents working on a Saturday? Mom and Dad picked up extra hours because they apparently needed the money. That's odd. The least your mom could have done was tell me that they weren't celebrating your birthday. I would have had even more money to spend on you. Grandma, that's really sweet, but I'm already used to this. What do you mean? I mean that Mom and Dad are almost never home, and they always miss big events because they're too busy working. That's so sad. How do you feel though? I was sad yesterday, but I don't think I should have been. Why? I mean, it's only natural to feel bad when your parents forget about celebrating your birthday. I mean, they've been doing it for so long. I should not have thought that they would have remembered. Sweetie, that's so incredibly sad. I'm going to talk to your parents about it. You don't deserve this. No, please don't. They'll only get mad at me, and they might not let me see you again. But please, Grandma. Fine, but you're staying with me tonight, and we're celebrating your birthday properly. I tried my best to push aside what Matt had revealed to me for the duration of his celebration with me. I took him out, let him buy whatever he wanted, and he seemed very happy. I was glad I could lift his mood. The next day after Matt left, I phoned Melanie to inquire why neither she nor Nain had celebrated Matt's birthday. Melanie simply explained they were busy, which infuriated me. Besides being my grandson, Matt was just a child, and no child should be forgotten in such a manner. I conveyed my concern to Melanie, but she dismissed me, telling me to mind my own business and not lecture her on parenting. Fearing she might cut off my access to Matt, I bit my tongue. About a month after Matt's 12th birthday, I received a distressing call from him while at work. "Grandma, Matt, sweetie, how's everything going?" "Grandma, I need help." "What? Why? What's going on? I feel really sick." "Oh, sweetie, where are your parents?" "I've been trying to tell them I haven't been feeling well for a long time now, and they haven't been listening. They keep telling me that I'm fine and that they're too busy to do anything about it." On a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is the pain? 10. Whoa, where is this pain you're feeling? Near my tummy, Grandma. Could you please stay here fast? I don't think I'll be able to stay awake for too long. I'm already on my way, sweetie. Just keep talking to me. How long have you been feeling this way? I've been feeling this way for a week and a half now, and it's always been this bad. Why wouldn't your parents take you to the doctor? That's not right of them. I don't know. I tried to tell them. I even went to them and cried about it, but they just brushed me off. I'm going to have a stern talk with them. In the meantime, I'm only 10 minutes away, sweetie. I'll be there super soon. Are you lying down? I'm sitting at my desk. Could you get on the bed and try to lie down? Maybe that will ease the pain a little. Oh, okay. Well, I'll try. Grandma, everything's getting so blurry. Matt, stay with me, sweetie. In a panic, I rushed over to Matt's place. While en route, I called 911 to get him help as quickly as possible. Fortunately, my workplace was only a 7-minute drive from Melanie's. I arrived before the EMTs, and upon entering Matt's room, I found him lying on the floor, his face turning blue. When I touched him to check for a pulse, he felt incredibly cold. Thankfully, I felt a pulse, and shortly after my arrival, the EMTs arrived, loading him into an ambulance and rushing him to the nearest hospital. I persistently tried calling Melanie and Nathan, but neither of them responded. Left with no choice, I resorted to leaving voicemails and messages, urgently informing them of Matt's situation. As I imagined worst-case scenarios, Matt's doctor delivered the alarming news that he had a ruptured appendix and required immediate surgery. Anxiety consumed me as Matt was rushed into the emergency room, and I anxiously paced back and forth, struggling to reach Melanie and Nathan. My frustration toward them intensified with every unanswered attempt. Thankfully, Matt's surgery proceeded smoothly, and he regained consciousness shortly after being placed in his own ward. About an hour later, Melanie and Nathan finally arrived. Oh my God, Matt, what happened? Apparently, my appendix ruptured and I needed immediate surgery. How did this happen so suddenly? Suddenly? Matt has been complaining about this pain for over 10 days. But how were we supposed to know it was this serious? Are you being serious right now? As Matt's parents, both of you should attend to every pain and illness he has, regardless of how tiny or insignificant it seems. I don't appreciate you talking to my husband that way. I wouldn't have to talk to either of you like this if you just took care of your son. Are you accusing us of being bad parents? Yes, I think I've made it pretty clear. This was your only mistake, a mistake that could have cost Matt his life if he hadn't called me. Not to mention, both of you prioritize your work over Matt all the time. We do not. Tell me that when I've been picking him up at least 3 times a week from school because both of you forgot. We're working hard to provide for him. Sure, we forget to do certain things every once in a while, but that doesn't make us bad parents. You think Matt is going to care about all the money you got him 5 years down the lane? No, all he's going to remember is how you neglected him and how your neglect almost got him killed. You are overstepping so many lines. That's it. You may be Matt's grandma, but you have no say in how he's brought up or what we, as parents, do. I want you out of his ward. But Mom, I want Grandma here. She brought me here. So I think she deserves to be here. Matt, stay out of it. Once you're nice and healed, you are going to be in trouble. Why will he be in trouble? He could have called us and told us about his pain. Instead of coming to us, he went to you. And now we're beyond humiliated and embarrassed. You can't take your feelings out on him. He's been suffering, and he reached out to the only person he knew would take his pain seriously. Okay, Lucy, you really need to step out now, or we will have to get you thrown out. You can't do that. As his parents, we will be given first priority. I just have to tell the nurse to take you out of care. Fine, but this isn't over. Matt, sweetie, take care. Everything will be fine, and you have absolutely nothing to worry about. I'll see you soon. I was beyond enraged, but once again, I decided to hold my tongue because I knew that I couldn't just abandon Matt when he most definitely needed me the most. I tried my best to get in contact with Melanie and Nathan to get updates on Matt, but neither of them answered any of my calls or texts. I could only hope that Matt was recovering nicely. That was until just a week after his surgery. Melanie called me and asked me to look after Matt during the daytime after work until they came back home. She never addressed our last conversation. nor did she apologize for how she talked to me. I let it go because I was just happy to see Matt again. The next day, I rushed over to Matt right after work and saw him lying in bed playing a video game. "There's my brave and strong man. How are you doing, champ?" I could be better, I guess. Have Mom and Dad been taking proper care of you?" "Well, they left me alone all day. So what?" "I thought at least one of them would have taken off to look after you. It was truly a miracle that even one of them stayed with me when I was in the hospital." "Oh my God, you poor child. I want out of this house, Grandma. Is there anything you can do about it?" "Of course. I mean, I'm your grandma, and your parents have neglected you enough for me to use my rights as your grandma to take custody of you. But I don't think that your parents will be too happy about it." "Who cares what they think? They clearly don't care enough about me." "I completely agree. You'll be a little busy though, and you'll probably have to go to court, and it'll be really tiring." "I'll do anything to get out of this house. If I could survive my appendix bursting, I think I can handle being tired for a while." "Wow. Just how much damage have your parents done? You know, one time they forgot me in another state because they got too wrapped up with their own things." "Another state?" "Yeah, one time they surprised me with a road trip, which only turned out to be a business trip for both of them. I spent the entire time in the hotel while both of them worked. One day after their meeting was over, they simply left, completely forgetting I was even there. I had to spend a whole night at the police station, waiting for them to come back. When the police spoke to my dad, he told them he was overtired, and it was an honest mistake, so they let him go. I got yelled at afterward for not calling them." "Did the police say anything to them?" "They spoke to my dad, and he told them he was overtired, and that it was an honest mistake, and they let him go. I got yelled at afterward for not calling them." "My God, they're monsters. Do you see why I want out so bad?" "Absolutely, honey. Let's give you another day or two to feel better, and then I'll bring a lawyer over, and we can start discussing getting custody of you." "Thank you, Grandma." I didn't think I could get any more appalled by Melanie and Nathan's parenting, but there I was, listening to just a few snippets, and I already wanted to unleash hell on them. I knew that it would not be right to get my emotions involved in this situation, so I just spent the rest of that day talking with Matt and trying to make him feel better. The next day, I took a week off work, and the first thing I did was get in contact with a lawyer. He advised me to collect as much evidence as I could about Melanie and Nathan's neglect, so I started to do that. Over the next 4 months, I got Matt on board and asked him to keep track of everything. We set up a hidden camera in his room so that every conversation was recorded. Gradually, we collected more than enough evidence, along with evidence from the past and testimonies from those involved. We had more than enough evidence to guarantee my custody of Matt. With that, I filed for Matt's custody, and Melanie and Nain were summoned to court. Of course, they did not take it lightly, and I got a very angry call from Melanie. "What do you think you're doing?" "Oh, hi, Melanie. Do not try to be nice to me right now while you're trying to take Matt away from us. You have shown me one too many times how you neglect Matt. I don't want him growing up thinking that he's never cared for. That was one isolated incident, Mom. I've been speaking to a lawyer and to Matt. Matt has told me about all the other non-life-threatening ways you and Nain have been neglecting him. So you've brainwashed Matt into thinking that we don't love him either. I didn't force him to leave. I believe he wanted to go a long time ago, but he didn't realize he could. How can you even say that? This is all you're doing. You had to throw a huge fit in front of him at the hospital, Melanie. I don't think you realize just how scary it was to walk into your home and see Matt lying unconscious and blue on the floor. It took everything in me to remain calm and get him the help he needed. Your nonchalance about everything that happened to him is only making me angrier. We are not being nonchalant. You haven't even been paying attention to him after he had his surgery. Neither of you even took some time off to look after him. He's been home alone most of the time. Oh, shut up, Mom. We invited you over. He was not alone. I only see him after I'm done with work, which is around the afternoon. You and Nain leave early in the morning and don't even get back until late evening. He's alone for a good portion of the day, and as far as I'm concerned, that's major neglect. How do you expect us to pay off the surgery? Huh, that was only more stress on us. Are you trying to blame Matt for something he had no control over? If the shoe fits, you know what will alleviate you of all this financial stress? If you let me take care of Matt, he's my son. Your son that you do not care for. You can either make this easy, or I will drag everything you've ever done to Matt into the public. Are you threatening me? If the shoe fits, now I have to go meet with my lawyer. You have 3 days to give me an answer. Bye. I actually did plan to provide evidence of all Melanie and Nathan's neglect to our family. Nathan's family, along with their workplaces, because I saw no reason for people like them to have children. It was only a miracle that they lived close to me, so I had some form of knowledge of what was happening on the inside. Matt was upset that his parents just did not see why they were wrong, but I stood by his side and assured him that the way his parents fought was not influenced by him or any of his actions. 3 days later, Melanie and Nathan willingly gave up their custody of Matt to me. Let me tell you, I have never in my life seen someone as happy as Matt was when he found out that his parents were signing over their custody of him. Matt cried for a good 5 minutes in pure happiness. Seeing him that happy only made my heart break even more for him at the thought of what the poor child must have gone through for years before someone even listened to him. Of course, Melanie and Nain were not very nice about handing over their custody of Matt to me after the deed was done. At first, they were low-key about it, but then the family began to get suspicious of Matt never being with them. They eventually came clean about their loss of custody of Matt, but not before blaming me for ruining their family. I received numerous calls from people condemning me as a horrible person for separating a child from their parents. Despite the criticism, I chose to ignore it because Matt was my top priority. Creating a safe environment for him took precedence over dealing with those who merely sought gossip. I weathered the harsh judgments from my family, ensuring that Matt remained oblivious to the negativity. However, things took a darker turn when Melanie and Nathan started spreading the false narrative that Matt had convinced me to strip them of custody. Matt now had his own phone and number, and he began receiving texts from concerned family members questioning why he was allegedly breaking his parents' hearts. This was when my anger reached a boiling point. While I could tolerate the accusations against me, dragging their son's name through the mud was unacceptable. I decided to take action by creating a group chat for the family members who had been harassing us. In the chat, I shared a folder filled with evidence of Melanie and Nathan's neglect of Matt. After sharing the evidence, I exited the group chat and blocked everyone involved on both Matt's and my phones. Subsequently, I heard from some family members that the shared evidence had triggered a significant backlash against Melanie and Nathan. They were ostracized by the entire family, and even their employers were informed of their actions, leading to job-related consequences. While I could empathize with their situation, I couldn't overlook their cruelty and inhumanity. I chose to distance myself from any information regarding them, not just for Matt's sake, but also for my own mental well-being. Each mention of them increased my anger and blood pressure. On a brighter note, Matt has never been happier. He has returned to excelling at school, and the joy in his life is evident as he frequently invites friends over. Humorously, I just about missing the quieter house before Matt moved in, but in truth, the child deserves all the laughter and smiles after everything he has been through. I am committed to protecting and providing for him, and I am confident that he has a much better handle on his life and himself, alleviating many of my worries. Thank you for taking the time to read our story.